Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to continue with our second degree trig equations, but what you're going to find is that the ones we're covering today are not going to be factorable. So we need to think back to quadratic equations and what strategies we could use when solving a quadratic equation that was not factorable. So one of the strategies that we always could rely on was using the quadratic formula. Okay, and that's really what we're going to be practicing today. Now the quadratic formula, using it on a trig equation, okay, it can be used on a factorable trig equation and the ones we're doing today that are non-factorable, just like the way you can use it on a factorable quadratic and a non-factorable quadratic. Okay, so our first step is to make sure to set the equation equal to 0. Okay, first step is already done for us. So now when we did the quadratic formula, it was always x equals negative b plus or minus the square root. Here, we're not solving for x, we are trying to get the trig function by itself. So I'm going to write down here as our step number 2 is to use the quadratic formula. Okay. And in parentheses here, I'm going to put that it's whatever trig function we are working with equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So in this first question here, we're trying to get tangent, okay, by itself. So our formula is tangent theta equals negative b, that is negative a negative 5, so that's a positive 5, plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared. Remember the use of parentheses there, because if you don't type it in with parentheses, you will not get the correct answer. Minus 4 times 2 times negative 4 all over 2a, which is 4. Going to our calculator, we have 5 plus or minus, so I'm going to the calculator and I'm typing in just what's underneath the square root. Don't actually type in the square root when you're doing this. And we get plus or minus the square root of 57 all over 4. Now the plus or the minus here gives us two different answers. So we want to figure out tangent theta of 5 plus the square root of 57 over 4, and tangent theta equals 5 minus the square root of 57 over 4. Okay? So I'm going to come over here first and write step number 3 is going to be the where are you, what are you step, okay, which we've practiced at length at this point. So I'm coming to my calculator and I'm typing in 5 plus the square root of 57 all over 4. And I look at that number, okay? So tangent theta equals 3.1374 58609. Doing the where are you, what are you? So the 3, okay, is positive, and the function for tangent is positive in quadrants 1 and 3. To figure out what the reference angle is, it's second tangent of that answer. And you're asked here to round to the nearest tenth of a degree. So the reference angle that we get here is 72.3 degrees. Now I'm going to come over here, take a little shortcut. I'm going to copy and paste that, except I'm going to make it a minus the square root of 57. that tells us tangent theta equals negative 0.6374, 586,088. When we do the where are you, what are you, tangent is negative here, so that's in quadrants 2 and 4. Now be careful when you do second tangent here. I'm going to copy this number, but I need to come all the way back and delete that negative sign. That negative sign was already used up in telling us the where, okay? Can't double dip and use it again for this. So the what is 32.5 degrees. So putting our answer into all the quadrants, I'm going to write my answer up here. Theta equals, so 72.3 in quadrant 1 is 72.3. In quadrant 3, it's 180 plus 72.3. That gives us 252.3. 32.5 in quadrant 4 is 180 minus 32.5, which is 147.5. And 360 minus 32.5 in quadrant 4 is 327.5. Okay. Now, some students choose not to write this step down here and work exclusively in the calculator, and I'm okay with that as long as you can keep your work organized and understanding which quadrants things are in. I'm okay with that. Okay. Question number 7. Question number 2 is 7 tangent squared theta plus tangent theta equals 13. So we are going to go ahead and subtract the 13 to set the equation equal to 0. We're going to go ahead and use the quadratic formula here to solve. So tangent theta equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Going to our calculator, we're just going to type the numbers that are underneath the square root. So we have 1 squared minus 4 times 7 times negative 13, which gives us 365. I'm going to bring my question over to here. So this is tangent theta equals negative 1 plus radical 365 over 14, and tangent theta equals negative 1 minus radical 365 all over 14. So I'll show you what I mean by doing this just in the calculator. So negative 1 plus the square root of 365 all over 14. You can see that that tells us it's positive, and the tangent is positive in quadrants 1 and 3. So now that I have this in my calculator, we're going to do second tangent of that, and that to the nearest tenth of a degree is 52.3 degrees. So it kind of saves us that step of having to write out those long drawn out decimals. Now, okay, I'm going to come back, change that to a minus. So that tells us that tangent is negative. So we know that's occurring in quadrants 2 and 4. So second tangent, and remember, can't use that negative. We already used it to tell us the where. So that is 55.1 degrees. So 52.3 in quadrant 1 is itself. 180 plus 52.3 is 232.3. 180 minus 55.1 is 124.9. And 360 minus 55.1 is 304.9 degrees. Okay. Question number 3. Setting this equal to 0, I'm going to add the cosine to the other side and subtract the 3. So cosine theta equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 AC all over 2a. Let's go ahead into our calculator and find what number is underneath our radical. So we have 1 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 3, and we get 61. So we go to our 2 answers. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one. So negative 1 plus the square root of 61 all over 10. That tells us it's positive. So cosine is positive in 1 and 4. And the angle to the nearest tenth is 47.1 degrees. Coming up here, this tells us that it is negative. So that is going to be put into quadrants 2 and 3. Second cosine of that, remember to get rid of that negative. And that tells us that we have 28.2 degrees. So 47.1 degrees in quadrant 1 is 47.1. 360 minus 47.1 gives us 312.9 degrees in quadrant 4. 180 minus 28.2 gives us 151.8 degrees in quadrant 2. And 180 plus 28.2 gives us 208.2 degrees in quadrant 3. Okay, I'm actually going to do one more question with you. And then the rest you guys are going to try on your own, and you can check your answers tomorrow when we post the answer key. All right, so let's take a look at question number 5. Okay, just wanted to make sure we got one of each type of function done. So we're going to minus the 7 from both sides. That leaves us with 10 sine squared theta plus 10 sine theta minus 7 equals 0. So sine theta equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 AC all over 2a. Sine theta equals negative 10 plus or minus the square root, and that's going to be 10 squared minus 4 times 10 times negative 7, and that gives us 380. So sine, let me just fix that real quick. Sine theta equals negative 10 plus the square root of 380 over 20. And sine theta equals negative 10 minus the square root of 380 over 20. Okay, I'm going to slide this over so we can see our calculator. So we have negative 10 plus the square root of 380 over 20. That's positive. So the sine function is positive in quadrants 1 and 2. Second sign of that decimal, tells us our reference angle is 28.3 degrees. Coming back up and then just typing over it to make it a negative, we get negative 1.4. Okay, so even if we did do this, let's say we got to this part and we realize that sine is negative in 3 and 4. When we would go to do second sine of this, now some of you may recognize this because we've done it already, but this is a value that was smaller than negative 1 and it's not going to work. Okay, you get an error over here. So this part of this does not yield any solutions. So as opposed to the other questions where we actually got 4 answers, since we're eliminating this, we're only going to get 2 answers. And that's going to be 28.3 degrees in quadrant 1. And for quadrant 2, it's 180 minus 28.3. And that gives us the 151.7 degrees. Okay, so you are now asked to work on questions 4, 6, and 7, okay, following the steps that we just learned in the video today. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.